thinking of, what AA calls serenity, where you're just comfortable being in the moment. But it's weird that I've been kind of equating that like as a kind of complacency or death rather than a good kind of stillness. I'm so used to the appetite clamoring all the time.
Hello and welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I'm your hostess, Ray Hance, and we have another wide-ranging episode for you this week with a very willing and brave guest. This week, we go deep into control, and control. How that plays out in anxious and avoidant attachment, how that plays out in confusing openness with collapse, skin hunger, rising and falling in love, the exhaustion of grabbing and clinging, how to trust gentleness, not letting go without claw marks, aging, forest time and the sense of belonging, vanity and visibility, and did I mention control? What is our guest's question for the I Ching this week? Why do I think I'm such a piece of shit?
I have abandonment anxiety, and I'm not in a relationship right now, but when I do find myself in a relationship, part of me intellectually knows that what is meaningful is that the person is choosing me. Every day the person is choosing me. Otherwise, it wouldn't mean much at all. But I have this terrible anxiety about, the uncertain future of a relationship, knowing that the person could leave me tomorrow. I know that's something I should embrace. I know it's something I want to embrace, but I'm having trouble truly accepting and embracing that. So uncertainty, I know that's something you talk about quite a bit, and it's something I want to be comfortable with.
What happens if you stop wanting that?
If I stop wanting certainty, I will be able to live.
No. I mean, what if you stop wanting to feel differently about it?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I've never thought about it that way. So what happens if I'm just okay with the anxiety of uncertainty?
Yeah.
Damn. I guess I always thought it was something I needed to fix, that anxiety shouldn't be there because it makes me behave in, clingy sorts of ways.
Is it the feeling that makes is it the feeling that makes is it the feeling that makes you behave in clingy ways, or is it trying to avoid the feeling that makes you behave in clingy ways?
Oh, wow. This is shedding a whole new light on it. I think that the behavior is driven by, some need to control something I know I can't control and shouldn't even try to control, which is the other person's feelings.
So how can you feel other than anxious about that?
Yeah. That's actually a really useful way of looking at it. Because I've always felt that my feelings were wrong. My feelings themselves needed to be fixed rather than just being okay with the feeling.
Have you ever let anyone witness you in that fear?
Yeah, and I drove them away, basically. I was dating someone, and he didn't want to. We've been dating like 6 weeks, and he called me a girlfriend, but he didn't want to put it on Facebook. He didn't want to change his status. It later turned out that he didn't want to change his status because he wanted to look at other women. So all my fears that I thought were on, bad in me turned out to be actually a correct intuition. But I felt for a long time that I had driven him away with my need to make it official, with my need to make it public. And I thought that that was something I needed to tamp down, and that's what made him leave ultimately. but probably he wasn't really fully there to begin with. And that's why I had the anxiety, maybe.
Were you?
Yes, I was. But I was, early on, a month into the relationship, a little too focused on the future. Is this going to last? Is this person going to stick around?
So then were you there?
You mean like fully present?
Were you emotionally available?
I think so. But then again, maybe not. Maybe my fears were getting in the way. I usually think of myself as being overly open-hearted. Like I fall really hard and really fast for people. And sometimes I think I should, refrain from so much intensity.
Is there a difference in your body specifically between the feeling of openness and the feeling of collapse?
Well, yeah. I mean, being open is terribly vulnerable. And so I can see how like the word collapse is a metaphor for that kind of great yawning abyss, it's kind of like there's some existential crap that lies behind it.
a lot of existential crap lies behind it.
Yeah. So I guess being open is like having this great, absence within me, kind of this great, yawning hole inside of me. So yeah, I can see how that makes sense.
So that yawning hole, do you consider that openness or collapse?
Oh, I'm starting to think they go together in the way that I've been feeling.
The brilliant Roshi Joan Halifax, one of her greatest Zen koans is simply soft front, strong back.
I like that.
So when you're open, what happens to your strong back?
I think I sometimes doubt that there's some part of me that thinks I won't survive a breakup. If this person leaves me, I won't be able to handle it. And that's actually really silly because I do know how strong I am. I know that I can weather it. I know that I'll be okay. It's going to hurt for a while, but it won't bring me to collapse. I can get through it. I can survive and it's not going to break me. But there's some part of me that doubts that strength when I'm in a relationship. Like I'm somehow thinking I can't bear it if this relationship doesn't work out.
So are you more in that fear or in that relationship at the time?
Yeah, it may very well be that I'm in the fear much more than I think I'm present in the relationship. I think that I'm open and vulnerable. And if anything, I've always felt too open and too vulnerable. But it could be kind of the opposite, as you're suggesting.
What parts of you feel most unlovable in those situations? What part are you handing over to someone else to love for you or instead of you?
I think the vulnerability itself. I know that I've been feeling more and more self-conscious about my age recently. I'm not feeling like I'm really loving that part of myself. I'm feeling, I always felt okay about my appearance. I mean, not always, great, but okay about my appearance most of the time until recently. And now I'm feeling like my age is finally starting to show. So that's maybe part of myself I don't love. It's also obviously something I can't control. So I don't like the things I can't control, apparently.
And what about inside?
Inside, well, I know there are, you know what? Something I don't like about myself in a relationship is that part of me that gets controlling at times. I was in a marriage where we fell into these roles of me being the one who always had to be in charge because the other person never was. And I didn't want to be in charge, but I felt like I was forced into that role. And then I took on that role to the point where I became, when I look back at myself, like I really think I became a controlling bitch. And I don't want that to happen again. It keeps coming back to control issues. I can see that. But if I start getting bossy and critical and controlling or giving unwanted advice, that's a part of myself I don't really like or want that to show. I can keep it at bay early in a relationship, but sooner or later, that side of me.
Sooner or later, it all comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
About 6 months in, the real you starts to show up. The real him starts to show up. And you're like, oh, wow. Hey, but what a chance to go deeper. Like that's when the real fun begins.
Yes. Yeah.
You start to get emotionally sober together.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. I am 6 years sober, so I am a recovering alcoholic, and there's all kinds of issues there. I know that I uncovered a lot of in my recovery, discovered a lot of codependence and that fucking drama triangle, which you know about, right? I think I've heard you refer to it before.
Talk about that a lot. It's a big part of how we keep ourselves from being seen. Yeah. And how we foster that toxic mimic of being fully alive and instead distract ourselves from what would really make us feel fully alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm hearing a lot of rescuer tendencies in their romantic relationships. How does that land for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if anything, in my marriage, I was more of the persecutor, like constantly persecuting. But then that also allows me to play the victim, like you fucked up. And
once you're in one position on there, everybody's just going around the carousel over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested then in how you've winnowed this down into a question for the I Ching today.
So I guess my question is how can I truly, internally embrace the uncertainty? I know that uncertainty is not only okay, but that it's actually might be something good if I can find a way to fully embrace it. I know that on an intellectual level, but on an emotional level, I still fear the uncertainty a lot.
Yeah, being able to really be in your skin instead of crawling out of it when things feel uncertain.
Yep. Yeah.
And I guess that's partly where I was coming back to, like, can you just allow that instead of being like, oh, I shouldn't feel anxious now? Because that can let you relax into just being like, okay, these are the sensations that are in my body right now. Those are totally valid. And I don't have to make someone else responsible for them.
Yeah.
Because if you toss that at somebody else, they're going to probably duck instead of wanting to hold that.
True. Very true.
Because it's really not their responsibility to hold that for you. They can witness you, but they can't feel it for you or love the parts of you that you refuse to love.
Right. I guess a second part of the question then is, the problem in having those feelings is the behaviors that come from it. Controlling behaviors, anxious, clingy kinds of behaviors, being overly intense in a relationship too fast, wanting commitment too fast. And so, the feelings are valid. The behaviors aren't conducive to a relationship.
The behaviors that you listed are things that are making somebody else responsible for taking the anxiety away.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
So What happens when they don't do what you want them to do? Do you escalate or ground?
Probably escalate. Yeah, probably. If I don't get the reassurance I need, then I probably become more pushy.
So then how does that person have a way in to hold you if you're pushing?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like pushing them. It's like, yeah, clinginess is at the same time ultimately pushing a person away. That's kind of a terrible paradox, but that's exactly true.
I mean, I've definitely done a lot of that, and have come to realize that it's me refusing to see that person. I'm so self-centered in those moments. Mm-hmm. And that was the hard thing to realize, that that's actually like a self-centeredness.
Yeah.
And that I was confusing with love.
Right.
And that I wasn't really providing a place for somebody to come toward me. I was not emotionally available. And instead of kind of owning that, I was able to blame somebody else for being emotionally unavailable. And
okay.
Stepping away from that responsibility from my own emotional availability, because I was blinded by blame.
Yeah. And when you're that focused on yourself, you're not giving the love, as well as blocking yourself from receiving it.
Oh, and sometimes the better part of giving in love is your ability to receive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that
feeling so good.
If I can just ground myself enough to say, hey, I'm feeling insecure, I'm feeling anxious, and I need reassurance, but that's the right thing to do. And instead, the behaviors that come out are me being like, why won't you put me on Facebook? It's like this passive aggressive shit. It's not being, the vulnerability is saying, I need something. And I'm going to make myself vulnerable and tell you what I need here. And instead it comes out as like hiding that vulnerability.
Well, what's more vulnerable, telling somebody what you need or telling somebody how you feel? Like, could you be in that place of, this is making me feel insecure? How does that feel versus, I feel insecure, so I need you to do this so I can stop feeling insecure?
Right. Well, saying this is making me insecure is a way of blaming the other person. You're doing something that's making me insecure.
No, I'm just saying, just owning this is making me feel insecure, not you're making me feel insecure.
Okay.
I'm feeling insecure in this moment. And can you witness me here? It's not yours. It's mine. And can you witness me here? Can you hold me here?
And can you just give me a hug?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And instead it comes out as blame. You're making me insecure because you won't put me on Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
One provides a way in and the other shuts a door.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true.
And then it's like, oh, that emotionally unavailable guy. Well, who picked him? Who called him in?
Yeah.
That part that wants to stay in the comfort of control. Right.
Yeah, I got a lot of things to work on here.
Well, let's talk to the I Ching and see what the I Ching has to say about this discernment. So let's narrow down this question a little bit. What's the most alive in all? What feels the most unpleasant in all of that for you?
I think being really in the moment, without thinking about the possibility of future loss, feeling, this person might be showing me love in the moment. And instead I'm thinking about keeping it there instead of actually feeling it in that moment. And you know what? That's also this existential thing, because we can't control time, we can't control other people, we can't control our own essential aloneness. And so we seek to find some distraction from that in other people, but that's not quite the healthy connection. That's not why you should what you should expect or demand from someone.
That is a recipe for the avoidant and anxious relationship attachment paradigm.
Yeah.
One moves forward, the other moves back. One moves back further, the other one moves forward. And grabbing. Not letting go until there's nail marks, claw marks in there, you know?
That's funny, because just yesterday I quit smoking recently on top of my sobriety, and I described the feeling of wanting to smoke, wanting to drink, wanting to do whatever as a grabby, grasping kind of feeling. And I did that with my hands, like grabbing motions. That is how the impulse feels. It's like maybe a desire for oblivion.
Yeah. Say more about what, like that sensation, how that sensation is in your body.
It's like this appetite that can't be fulfilled. I want something, I need something external, and I need to put it inside myself. That sounds a little sexual, but that's probably not completely unrelated.
I think there are probably some pretty solid parallels there between cigarettes and men. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend calls it skin hunger. Skin hunger.
Exactly. Skin hunger.
Yeah. And now that I've quit smoking, I am orally obsessed. And I'm like chewing cinnamon toothpicks and enjoying the way it burns my tongue and blisters my lips. I'm eating sunflower seeds that are so salty that it's like corroding the taste buds off my tongue. I'm like eating and chewing, and I have to like feed my hunger somehow.
Okay, so here's another interesting parallel. So you're pursuing behaviors that you know will be painful, and you're blaming it on your skin hunger.
Okay.
So you know it's going to be painful. So probably in the relationships too, you know that the clinging eventually fails, as it's not a very sustainable love strategy.
Yeah,
love
and
strategies
absolutely.
in general are not a thing.
Yeah, it drives people away, as it would me. If somebody was clingy towards me, I wouldn't like it either. I would think it makes me think they're not good enough. if they want me that much.
Oh, there's a gold nugget. There is like a gold nugget.
I don't want to join a club that would have me as a member.
So there's a really interesting self-compassion piece here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could use a little more self-compassion.
Do you deserve tenderness?
Intellectually, I want to say yes. In like when I assess myself as a potential partner, I think I'm hot shit, but somewhere inside of me must not think that.
When was the last time you received gentleness?
I mean, it necessarily in a romantic relationship?
No. Any tenderness, any gentleness, a time when you really opened to
honestly, and this feels kind of sad to say this, but sometimes through Facebook, I find kindness in people. I hate that it's through Facebook because it feels like it's not real life, but these are real people, real emotions. So maybe I shouldn't look at it, that way. But I have had people reach out to me, people I didn't even know, who sent me a woman. She was the wife of a high school friend, a Facebook friend, and she sent me a necklace with these sort of little notes of affirmation. We've never even met in person. It was just such a kind, sweet gesture. I felt that from people, sometimes, strangers even.
When was the last time you've received gentleness physically? Like in touch?
Like last spring. Yeah, I haven't been with anybody since then.
But it's not just in a sexual or romantic relationship, but just in general, like receiving. Like, I know you give a lot of care to a lot of beings.
Yeah. I suppose I sort of put that on animals much of the time. My family has never been physically affectionate. We don't do a whole lot of hugging. So I may be, a little bit, I may have learned that kind of,
skin hunger.
Yeah. Skin hunger, but not following through on it, keeping myself a little bit physically distant, maybe. COVID doesn't help, of course, but.
Is there something that feels alive for you about the hunger itself? Like not wanting to satisfy it because there's something very alive about the hunger?
Yeah. I mean, what are we without hunger and appetite? That's what being alive is about. I think, I can't remember. I wrote a poem once and there was something about when the appetite goes, you're good as dead. I used a line something like that, like the very when you don't hunger, when you don't seek, when you don't reach for some things that you want, that's like being dead. Appetite is what drives us. And yet I've always looked at that appetite as being sort of like excessive, and maybe as a sign of weakness. I'm supposed to be happy with myself and not need other people is sometimes how I feel.
Does your value on that hunger land you in a space of scarcity? At what point do you perpetuate that hunger to the point of scarcity? How does that resonate for
you? So that I'm trying to suppress the hunger, you mean?
No, that the hunger is so much more valuable than a sense of contentment or fullness.
Oh.
Is that something what's your relationship to scarcity like?
Yeah. And are you equating contentment with scarcity?
No.
Okay.
Are you?
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I think
that's an interesting point.
I mean, contentment is to me like a lack of appetite, and contentment can just be a kind of complacency where you're not living fully. You're not letting your passions rage. You're just kind of accepting what is instead of, striving to be.
And how do you see the relationship between striving and suffering?
I mean, I think that there's always going to be pain. There's always not that I feel that I'm in that state all of the time, but I think it's unrealistic to strive to not have those things. I came across an article recently.
Why strive? Why are you striving? What are you striving for? What are you striving for? What comes when you're in a place of ease? What do things look like? What do things look like from you?
I'm thinking of, what AA calls serenity, where you're just comfortable being in the moment. But it's weird that I've been kind of equating that like as a kind of complacency or death rather than a good kind of stillness. I'm so used to the appetite clamoring all the time.
To the point where you're cultivating that appetite even when it hurts you.
Yeah, probably.
Hunger exists to get us fed, to signal us that we would like to be fed.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder why I see that as bad, something I shouldn't have, something I should, I don't know what. I feel like I've learned something in my childhood that like I was Oliver Twist saying more, please, and got smacked for it. I think I did actually kind of learn that in my childhood, that it's not okay to ask for more. Because I never felt, quite honestly, I never felt I got enough love from my parents. It was never enough. Now, whether that was really them withholding affection, probably partly true. But also, what is it in me that never got enough attention, never got enough validation? Why was I so dependent on it from other people?
Well, when you're a kid, you are dependent on it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think having the self-compassion to realize that survival strategy is utterly valid. Mm-hmm. But when we start to bring it forward to the point where when people are trying to love us, we're so caught in that old loop that there's no way for them to come in because that identity turbine is spinning out so fast and putting off so much exhaust.
Identity turbine. I love that.
Nobody can put their hand in because it'll just get chopped up.
Okay. Yep. I feel stillness, I think, when I'm, stillness and serenity when I'm alone in the woods, in nature, and I become immersed in it to the point where I lose self-consciousness. I'm so focused on my surroundings. I'm not thinking about myself anymore. And that can be a lovely sort of feeling.
So what brings you out of that sense of belonging?
I guess, I don't know. Like, I think I guess I've learned that, I look around me and everyone's partnered and I think that that there must be something wrong with me, something unlovable about me that I seem to have so much trouble finding a partner. And I know some of it's my circumstances, central Pennsylvania. There's all, some of it is not within my control, and it's not because there's anything bad about me. It's just,
what if none of it is in your control?
Yeah. Well,
what would happen then? Like, what would that look like? How would you have to open? How would you have to move through the world if you really felt like none of it was in your control, but all of it was all around you all the time, like when you're in the forest? Like that connection that you feel in the forest is actually, that sense of belonging is innate and around you all the time. And it's only when we get into comparisons that we start to separate. And we start to believe in separation and scarcity. And get rid of that sense of belonging, because once we're back in the human world and out of the more than human world, that starts to feel unsafe because humans are inherently untrustworthy because they didn't meet my needs back then. And so how would they possibly meet my needs now?
Right.
And then what am I doing? I'm out of belonging and I'm all thinking about my needs, instead of actually opening to the sense of belonging that's there in the forest.
Yeah.
Like, what would it take for you to feel that with people?
I don't know.
That softness.
Yeah. I don't know. I have never really not had this feeling like I need another person to make me whole. I step out of it when I'm in the woods because I'm alone, like truly alone, not alone on Facebook, not alone watching TV. But
are you? In the woods, are
I
you
see what you
alone?
mean. No, I'm feeling connectedness, kind of, connectedness with the universe, but not necessarily people.
So what would you have to surrender to feel, to allow yourself to be in that surrendered space with no vigilance and no begging?
Mm-hmm. I just
What
don't
happens?
know.
What happens in your body when you start to feel that that skin hunger? Where does it have a root under your skin somewhere?
Yeah, it feels like buzzing. It's like it's like this buzzing kind of energy, a very discontent kind of energy. Like an overly intense kind of energy. I don't know how to explain this, but I've always felt like a combination of not enoughness and too muchness at the same time. I don't even know what that means.
It's a classic combo.
Yeah.
It's the feminine combo meal. They usually come together.
You want fries with that?
Yeah, you want fries?
Yes, I want fries. I'm hungry.
I'd like a little bit of too much and a little bit of not enough and a side of fries, please.
Yeah. Yep, supersize me.
Supersize it. And boy, that'll get you also a free ticket to the drama carousel.
Yeah. Can the I Ching like guide me with this?
Absolutely.
What can you do that might?
Absolutely. I'm trying to like get to like what the real question is here. What is the thing where is the place that you are most getting in the way of your intuition, and the place where you really want to kink the pipe on your pipe of your life force, because something about the responsibility and the vulnerability that would come from you being fully alive is very threatening to you.
Yeah.
Where's that biggest threat?
I think you actually kind of suggested it early on when you said, what would happen if you just accepted that you have this anxiety? Whereas I've always felt like I need to get rid of these feelings. These are bad feelings to have, and there's something wrong with me for having them. Like I'm broken. Oh
no. No, there's nothing to fix in you or anybody else, though. And once you really realize that there's nothing to fix in you, you were not going to try to fix anybody else. And then we have a little openness and intimacy possible.
Yeah.
But believing you're broken, you're going to have a collection of doll shards in lieu of relationships, because like that's once you've put yourself in that scrap heap, that's where other people are going to think you live, and you're going to get other people to come in to join the scrap heap instead of the wholeness.
Okay. So I guess the question would be, does, the I Ching suggest a path or some form of guidance to get to that sense of being okay with having the needs that I have, having anxiety, having hunger? I guess I grew up thinking that it was somehow wrong to have those feelings. And so, what is the path that can bring me to better acceptance?
Do you feel like your hunger is wrong?
I think so. I never realized that until now, but yeah, I think somehow I've always felt that it was excessive.
Do you love that about it?
No.
How much of your identity is tied to being hungry and seeing that as passion or?
It could very well be that's a part of my identity. Like I do think of myself as this kind of high frequency person, passionate person, who has really strong emotions and high and low lows.
And feels like there's some equivalent between fullness and complacency.
Yeah. That's weird.
I definitely want you to sit with that. Like, that's really interesting that there's that they find full, like a sense of being sated or comfortable for a moment, or gentle or tender. That is complacency, that hunger is actually where the life juice is. Like, that's
right. Yeah, that's a good point. I think I want to start viewing it in different terms, thinking about it differently.
Thinking will not get you there.
Oh shit, you're right.
Thinking will not get you there. That's something that you can only do in your body.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Thinking will just get you right back on the drama triangle.
Yeah.
With yourself. Run yourself. Nobody else has to even be in the room for you to run yourself through victim, perpetrator, and rescuer. That's true. Yep. That's like, yeah. Pandemic was great for that.
Yes, it was.
Wow, this is a fascinating treadmill. No one has to be here, and I've run through the full range of human experiences in the last 7 days.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
It's so true. But what a wonderful opportunity to see how your own mechanics, like how the turbines put together, like how all those pieces, where they came from and how they fit together.
Yeah.
Because only you can dismantle that.
Yeah. Yeah, it allowed us to fall into victimhood because there was this outside thing, this pandemic that was attacking us and beating us down and making us, not allowing us to go out and find pleasure and do things.
Right, because half the time it's the thing outside of us that we're grabbing at to feel good.
Right.
So once we're in that position where we're grabbing at something outside to feel good, then we're very vulnerable, because it's very easy to vulnerable in the kind of crap way, because it's very easy to turn desire into a commodity and use own our attention and direct it outside. But there's always going to be something outside that we need, or someone on social media that's younger, prettier, richer, funnier, smarter, all the things. And that steers us away from the richness of who we are already.
Yeah, it's true. We're always chasing that carrot. We never get to, rest in the stable. Stability, the stable.
But there's a real value in coming to respect contentment.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not something that we're really taught to do because it's not a very useful economic model.
Oh, very true. Yes. Right.
Productivity and spiritual fitness are not always the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing, is that I often feel when I'm appreciating and enjoying my downtime, I see it as laziness. So yeah, for sure.
This is a soup that's comes up a lot. That comes up a lot with people I work with. A lot. Like that. And that's a real fundamental fear of the feminine.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a real fundamental fear of yin, and the not wanting to touch the erotic pulse of ruin and not letting things die away and allow that compost to be put back in the garden. We want to keep what we have at all costs.
Yeah.
Youth or money or, a person.
Yeah.
We don't respect ruin or replenishment. We respect nothing about the yin. And look at where that's landed us.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Not such a hot place, but it's really each of our responsibility to repair that relationship. And that's how it envelops the whole ecosystem. By each one of us taking responsibility for our replenishment and not villainizing ourselves with laziness or craziness when we show up exactly as we are.
Yeah. I can see how much I'm lacking self-compassion throughout this entire conversation, right? I'm calling myself broken and needy and all of these judgmental terms. Yeah.
And oh my God, Jesus,
why do I think I'm such a piece of shit?
That's a great question.
Well, I can definitely see things I learned as a child and parental
Why
stuff.
don't we ask the I Ching that question?
Let's do it.
I think that's exactly the question.
Okay.
All right. So your question is, why do I think I'm such a piece of shit? All right. I both myself and I'm sure the I Ching appreciate that level of directness. All right. So hold those coins in your hands. You have your 3 coins.
Okay, I do.
Great. I knew we'd get there eventually.
Yeah.
All right. So just really honor yourself and your question and your softness.
Mm-hmm.
Hold the coins in your hands, and I wouldn't say think about your question. It's not a matter of thinking about your question. It's about letting your question rest in your hands as you hold the coins. Letting the question just rest in your hands. I'm going to have you shake the coins in your hands, and we're going to throw all 3 coins 6 times.
Oh, okay. And then am I going to be telling you the pattern?
Mm-hmm. After you throw them, you're going to tell me how many heads and how many tails.
Okay. Oh, 2 of them are Canadian coins, so that's confusing me. It looks like I have all 3 tails.
All 3 tails.
3 tails. You want me to throw them again?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we're going to throw them 6 times, and you're going to tell me how many heads and how many tails each time.
Yep. Now I've got 2 tails, 1 head.
2 tails, 1 head.
Again, 2 tails, 1 head. Oh, again, 2 tails, 1 head. That was the 4th time, I think. Mm-hmm. 2 heads, 1 tail. Three heads.
So your reading is hexagram 50, the cauldron, into hexagram 34, power. So this is interesting, given the conversation that we've had so far. The cauldron is about putting everything in the cauldron, every experience, all the feelings, all the ingredients of your life are transformed in the cauldron.
Okay.
Just through that steady application of heat. So you have 2 transforming lines in there, but let me read you the cauldron. The cauldron has been generously filled. And that's an interesting way for you to think about, like, all the things that you don't want to feel. Like, those are also ingredients through which you are generously filled.
Okay.
Through which your more essential nature is fully filled. Energy, time, and attention transform the ingredients of your life to provide nourishment for all. Take it all in. Get cooking. The cauldron transforms and unifies. It is a stable, embodied space for transformation, but it's nothing without the alchemical fire. The cauldron alone can't cook. It holds the ingredients and transmits the heat. Likewise, it's not you in control of the transforming. It's you working with causes and conditions skillfully. You are the cauldron, generously filled, the holy crock pot. You can transform whatever you bring in, but only by letting it in. What are we cooking today? It's not what we were cooking yesterday. That's all we know. Sarah's onion, Kenshe celery, Karen's turnip, Tyler's kale. All offerings are transformed when generosity is met with generosity. Behold the gestation before digestion.
root vegetables soften to the revelation of their sweetness. Just as ore needed to be brought up from the earth and subject to concentrated and released forces to make the vessel itself, so too the concentration of eros that makes a human body, so the vessel also concentrates and releases forces, as within, so without, as above, so below. You are the vessel, and you manifest the vessel. You are the offering making offerings. In the vessel is something new. It's already no longer onion, celery, turnip, kale. You can't get them back now. Bodies break down to nourish new bodies in the thick bubble of the stew, the fragrance of melding flavors, the pleasure of it, nudging open your sense gates. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to excavate and everything to tend. Sunday morning slow, the middle way. The metabolic fire takes many forms. Today it lives in the hearth. Receiving the cauldron suggests your psycho-spiritual metabolism is functioning like a billy goat's. You could eat Dixie cups and find nourishment in them. You know how to let your meat fall from the bone. You can metabolize causes and conditions with as much inevitable ease as the cauldron softens a potato.
Interesting that there's the filling of the hunger and the contentment and the full cauldron.
And the slowness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The slow cooker, not the lazy cooker, the slow cooker, the thorough cooker.
Yeah.
The full transformation of whatever you put in there. It'll break down bones. You leave it in there long enough. So you have two transforming lines here at line 1 and line 6. Oh my God, this is really funny. Soft front, strong back is back. So your first transforming line at the bottom, that's really fun. It's the one place in the book where I actually have that. Line 1 is purge the vessel, turn it upside down, scour it out, slough off all the stagnating stuff. There's a big job. It's a perfect New Year's.
Oh, it sure is.
Perfect time to slough off all the stagnating stuff. Power wash that thing. This is usually frowned upon. The seasoning, it's like sticking your grandmother's cast iron skillet in the dishwasher. No, but sometimes you have to start over. You can't erase history, but you can wipe clean a slate. Examine habits. Stagnation, remove it. Purge the system. Literally barfing is possible. So now your other transforming line is at the top. And this one says the cauldron has rings of jade. You have what Roshi Joan Halifax calls soft front, strong back. How did you become so receptive and so wise? Each move you make is natural as jade and every bit as lucky. Which leads you into your second hexagram, which is power. Right. So there's a really fruitful, deeply powerful opportunity for transformation here. If you can learn to receive and slow down and take in all the turnips and like let all the things that you think are broken or you think are scraps or you think are shards or you think are little fragments, you put them all in the cauldron and see what they become next. You're not going to make them into what they were. They're the ingredients for the thing that you can't even see yet and don't have to.
Right.
But that is inevitably going to be delicious and nutritious, not only for yourself, but for others. I mean, because metabolism isn't complete until that which nourishes you comes out as nourishment for others. So this moves into power, hexagram 34. Universal patterns are revealed in your actions. Your moral compass is essential now. Maybe wear it around your neck so you don't lose it. Move from the power of love rather than the love of power. And I would add, and control.
Yep. Okay.
Move from the love of power, the power of love rather than the love of power.
Okay.
So be moved rather than controlling the next move.
Okay. All right.
Be moved. This is a vigorous yes, an affirmation of the growing clarity of your deepest knowing. You know who you are. There's nothing to prove, nothing to force. Power is peaceful. Power transmutes and transmits. Power is broad-based, stable and soft, like a jade mountain. Real power requires no performance. Sure, you could swing your dick now, but why squander that energy when you can accomplish the same thing by standing perfectly still? There are lots more beneficial actions available to you from there. Having the nervous system capacity to hold power without leaking all over the place and making a mess is the challenge of this hexagram. You have the capacity to sear and the restraint not to. Your life force is running like a spring river. You're swollen and throbbing. As Audre Lorde says in Uses of the Erotic, the function of the erotic is to encourage excellence and to give us the strength to pursue it. How do you define excellence? How do you use your strength? No one is asking you to be less selfish, just less self-centered.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So how have you been using your strength?
Trying to project it outward onto forces that are beyond my control and other people. So I guess
fairly self-centered use.
Yes. Yep. That's right. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. It's funny. Things came full circle here.
Isn't that interesting? Oh, I love when it works out like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Does it ever not?
No, not really. Not really.
Oh, really?
It always does. It's weird.
Yeah, I would think.
Weird and lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do I think I'm such a piece of shit? Because the cauldron, you're judging the ingredients. You're not just throwing everything in there and allowing it to be all present and transformed and turned into something super delicious that is all yours. It is 100% your meal to serve.
Right. But I just keep stirring it.
You're like, I don't want that. I don't want that in there. And I want you to put more of this in here. And why don't you bring more of that? This is too salty. This is, why don't you have enough carrots?
Yeah, just let it marinate.
Like, let's just see what it tastes like before we start jumping around, you know?
Yeah.
Jumping around thinking that what's in there is not enough or too much of this or not enough of that. The back to that paradox, you know? Mm-hmm. Back to the supersized meal of too much and not enough. In the cauldron, there's none of that. The cauldron will level everything out and transform absolutely everything. And that fire of your life force is just like, ready to stoke that gently. Mm-hmm. We all want gentleness, and so rarely do we trust it. It's like the thing we long for the most and the thing we trust the least.
Yes, that's right.
Because we feel like it's weak, just like slowing down feels like lazy.
Mm-hmm.
That is a really internalized economics right there.
It is. It is. My cauldron is full. Like I don't need to keep foraging.
No, and you don't need to take anything out or regret putting anything in. Like it's all trust that everything there belongs there. Mm-hmm. All yours. You don't have to villainize any of it. You don't have to fix anything. You are not broken. You are exactly as you need to be. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that? How's that landing?
Yes, in the moment I do. And then I'm thinking, well, later I won't. Why can't I keep this feeling around? It's going to leave. So there I go
on social media, do a little comparison, do a little hiding, a little distraction, a little avoidance. It's so easy to drop out of it. It's so easy to give it away. There's so many places to put it.
Right. And it's so easy to just go straight back to the patterns. So I'm going to seek more stillness.
And self-compassion.
Yes. Yeah.
For when the pattern comes back, love the pattern. The pattern's in your cauldron too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That pattern is not something that you're trying to like rip out with your bare hands and hold it in your hand like a still pulsing heart. That just goes in the cauldron too. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to want reassurance. It's okay to ask somebody to love you the way you want to be loved. Mm-hmm. It's not okay to make them responsible for your pattern. or responsible for your reaction to your old stories.
Yes. Yeah.
You can ask to be witnessed, but you can't ask for the burden to be taken from you. It's yours. It's your gift.
Mm-hmm.
Once you open it, it's your gift.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Fuck Suffering podcast with me, your hostess, Ray Hance. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE, and send us a message. If you're interested in the book that I use to do readings on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an Evolutionary I Ching. That's my book, and it's available on Amazon. If you would love to help us grow our audience, because you enjoyed the podcast so much, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And in the meantime, God, we really can't fuck suffering until we trust suffering. And in a wild existential kink, we are all in that together. Till next time. Bye.